Superman and Lois Season 3, Episode 3. Once again, another masterpiece episode of Superman and Lois. This show is so good and just wastes no time whatsoever and really delves into the main story. This episode not only pushes the two main storylines forward, the Bruno Mannheim storyline and what his plan is, as well as Lois's big reveal from last episode, but also we had some very compelling and interesting side stories as well that we will talk about in this review and breakdown for Superman and Lois Season 3, Episode 3. And also we do have some very interesting reveals in this episode, which we will certainly talk about as well, because it does set some very, very interesting stuff up that we need to theorize and talk about. And as I said, that will be towards the end of this breakdown. But yeah, before I get into the review and breakdown itself, I will give a quick spoiler warning, as this is a review and breakdown after all. So I'll be going over some major spoilers, which is certainly what I want to hear from me. So for those who haven't seen the episode, go watch the episode and then come back later for this breakdown. But for those who are staying, be sure to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel so you are aware of more DCTV videos coming your way. But yeah, this episode kicked off in a way which I certainly wasn't expecting, and we kick off with Clark's nightmare, where he's pretty much seeing Lois die. Like, he has this nightmare, he hears Lois screaming for help, and like he flies across the city in Metropolis, and just the visual effects of like the city tearing down, of Clark flying, everything like that in this scene, it was so well handled, and the visual effects, it's just so top notch. It just looks absolutely amazing. But yeah, Clark is looking for Lois, and he finds that she is pretty much about to get crushed by the Daily Planet, in which whether he's able to save her or not is a mystery. But then Clark wakes up from this nightmare. Now, I have a feeling this is somewhat going to play a major role into the season, mainly because of the amount of times Clark has been seeing this vision. Like, we've seen it twice in this episode, I believe, so it seems like it's going to be some sort of like a recurring thing throughout the season. And for me, this kind of like reminds me of Iris dying in The Flash Season 3, where Savitar kills Iris and Barry keeps, seeing that, yes, he did get thrown into the future, and that's how he pretty much knows about this. But I think this is some sort of a scene that's happening in the future, and it's going to play a big role in like the back half of the season or something like that. That's what I think is going to happen, but again, that could be a stretch as well. Now, we do then have a montage in the next morning where Lois begins to like tell her friends and family about her cancer diagnosis. So we have like a montage of her telling Lana and Kyle, and then heads on to tell Samuel Lane, and then so on. So Lucy Lane, pretty much all of her close ones, Chrissy, Beppo. So she tells everyone about that, and meanwhile the boys, they pretty much make Lois all of her like favorite foods for breakfast, because she won't really have an appetite due to like chemotherapy and all those sorts of stuff. But just as like, whole family dynamic and how, the family, they're going to like, work together, help Lois fight through this as much as possible. All of that is just absolutely beautiful, and I'm really, really loving it. Especially the interaction between Lois and Samuel Lane. That was very, very emotional. But yeah, we then have John Henry at Lana Lang's, and he's pretty much, setting up these security protocols. Like, he's making Sarah scan her face, give her name, same for Lana. And this was obviously because of what happened last episode with Onomatopoeia's attack. So, they need to ensure that everyone is as safe as possible. Now, while that is happening, we head into the Gazette, where Lois and Chrissy Beppo track down the lead on Bruno Mannheim. And while this is happening, Lois pretty much misses her appointment, and she does this a lot of times throughout the episode, and obviously this is because she is scared of what's going to happen and like the whole treatment process, but also she is prioritizing everything else but herself, mainly because she's so close to this case, she's so close to getting this lead, but also it kind of like distracts her mind of her sickness as well. So we do have like Clark at the hospital, for example, looking out for Lois, but she's not there, so he texts Lois. But we find out that Lois is actually at a lead, in which we see Chrissy and Lois, in some sort of like abandoned lab, and they trace some like blood samples, which does play a big part towards the end of the episode. But after that, we have Clark and Samuel Lane talking about Lois missing her appointment, and yeah, Samuel Lane is not very happy about this. Clark obviously does mention that she's out there tracking a lead, so she missed the appointment, but they're going to reschedule it, and Clark's going to be with her next time. Now, the kids have quite an interesting storyline, to say the least. Now, first things first, we have them in the cafe, like talking about like the party that happened last episode, and Jonathan's girlfriend is pretty much not looped into all of this, so there's some stuff that Jonathan obviously didn't say, such as the events of last episode with Jonathan and his ex at the party. So those sorts of stuff she's not really looped in on. But then also afterwards we have the storyline where Natalie, is thinking of giving Lois something, so she gives like a watch engraved with like everyone's name or something like that, and like it operates with kinetic energy, in which throughout the episode we see that John Henry is bothered about this, because obviously this Lois isn't, his wife and Natalie's mother. It's a completely different Lois. So John Henry is kind of bothered by this in the same way. And during that scene as well, John Henry is kind of like analyzing onomatopoeia's powers. So I'm thinking that he's going to somewhat like find some sort of tech, or develop some sort of tech to pretty much suppress onomatopoeia's powers. Now the kids' storylines further develop with not only this watch, but also Jonathan's truck as well, where Candace's father pretty much steals them. So Jonathan does talk to his girlfriend Candace about this, in which obviously Candace defends her father. She's like, how could you accuse him of something like this? But obviously all the kids know that Candace's father had something to do with this, in which we had some sort of like a cool scene in the way. We had like some Superboy in there, but then Jonathan had time to shine, Natalie had time to shine. It was such a really cool scene where they break in and, they just pretty much get the truck back. I thought it was a pretty cool scene. And I really liked the scenes in the background with like the smoke, and then we had like Jordan flying in, we had Natalie flying in, and we had Jonathan like going to retrieve the car back. I thought that was really cool. And by the end of this storyline with the kids, Candace comes in, apologizes to Jonathan, and returns the watch, saying like, you were right, I'm sorry. And then we have Jonathan pretty much revealing a secret to Candace, and this has something to do with what I believe the events of last episode, where Jonathan's ex kissed him. I think he's going to talk about that and then just further loop her in regards to what happened in that party from last episode. But in terms of the kids' storyline, Sarah did also have a storyline, and that was with Kyle. She has dinner with her father, and she talks about John Henry being around Lana and like him setting up the security, in which Kyle later on in the episode goes to just check this out. But Lana pretty much gets angry about the fact that Kyle didn't really come to help Lana out and, give her a cup of coffee, stuff like that. He was mainly concerned about, John Henry being too close to Lana, and also that security. So that was pretty interesting as well. And then we obviously had the argument with Sarah and Lana in the house, and Lana did something that she shouldn't have, which was she hit her daughter. And obviously instantly you do see how badly she regrets it, which obviously it wasn't a very good thing to do. But I am very interested to see how this progresses going forward. But yeah, Clark goes on to have the same nightmare that he did about Lois again. So from that you can kind of tell that it's going to have a recurring theme throughout the season. But then they head over to the hospital, this time as a pair. Clark is going to make sure that, she has her treatment. But this is immediately interrupted with Clark having to go out there as Superman because lives were at stake, so he went to fly off, and this left Lois alone. And this is what started bothering her, she's getting scared, she's starting to panic, and she starts hearing noises in the back, and she just immediately leaves. She texts Chrissy asking about a lead on the investigation, but then Chrissy tells her to go back. She cannot miss another appointment again. Lois is like, I'm just going to reschedule it again, don't worry. But yeah, we have Chrissy obviously expressing her concerns about this, that Lois just continuously keeps on missing appointments and how this could affect her health. But the pair head over to another Intergang facility, this time where, Intergang members are present, so they're about to get caught. And then we have Lois and Chrissy ending up in some sort of freezer container with lots of blood samples. So yeah, pretty creepy. But yeah, they try to call for Superman's help, but the signal isn't getting through, in which Clark tries to listen from space because he finds out that Lois left. So he's at space trying to listen to find where Lois is, but obviously he's not able to hear it. And then Superman heads over to the DOD to ask Sam and John Henry's help, in which Sam Lane gets angry about the fact that he just left Lois, in which obviously they had this argument where Clark said lives were at stake, and then Samuel Lane's like, my daughter's lives at stake. Both of which very, very fair arguments. But yeah, we then have an Intergang member walking towards the container, in which he opens it only to find Lois Lane over there. He obviously pulls a gun and, orders Lois to step out, in which this is when Lois yells Superman, and then Clark is obviously able to hear it. He finds where Lois is and he flies right through to the rescue. And yeah, he just wipes out all of the Intergang members, gets Lois to safety, but Clark isn't able to get out just yet because someone hits Superman with some sort of like kryptonite blaster. I thought that was a pretty cool scene and something I certainly wasn't expecting. But obviously John Henry then arrives and saves Clark about that, and then the building is destroyed to pretty much hide all of the evidence that's been gathered, so Lois is back to square one. Now, the episode wraps up with a couple of different storylines. First things first, we have Clark and Lois talking about Lois missing all of those treatments, and Lois does express her concerns about this to Clark and why she is scared. And then later on, we have this very, very interesting ending, once again with Intergang, where Henry Miller is now inside. I'm going to call it a back to tank, but I know that's not really what to call it, but I'm going to call it back to tank. But it's pretty much like he's in some sort of container with like water continuously being tested on. And one of the Intergang members mentioned that they need to find someone else that could be like, pushed further, because Henry Miller, he keeps seizing out. He keeps, the tests keep failing with him. So they're obviously going to find someone else. I am very, very interested to see where this storyline develops. Now, in the episode, we did also find out that the blood samples that Intergang have hold of are Clark's blood. So how on earth did that happen? Because we have so many blood samples and we haven't really seen Clark bleed to that extent. So I'm really, really interested to see how they're able to, connect the dots together. But in regards to what they're now doing, they're using Clark's blood to pretty much experiment on others and pretty much create this super soldier. Now, this could obviously be a big setup to Doomsday as well. Like, this could be how Superman and Lois, introduces and creates Doomsday. That would be really, really cool if they did something like that. And in my opinion, it does seem like that's what they're going at. I think they're going to use Clark's blood on this other test project, whoever it's going to be, and Doomsday is going to be created as a result of that. It could even be Henry Miller that does end up being Doomsday as well. They might not have to end up finding another test member to do it on, but it could also be someone else. It could be the other test project that they're going to go for as well, that they're going to inject, Clark's blood and all of that, and unintentionally create Doomsday, might I say. But yeah, the episode wraps up with Kyle and Chrissy Beppo meeting up at the diner, in which she invites Kyle to go back to her place and just watch a movie, in which Kyle said, I'm down. But then Sarah arrives looking at her dad, she's really, really upset. And then Kyle's like, maybe another time, because he obviously sees her daughter really upset. He gives her a hug. And obviously that's got to do with the events of what Lana did to her earlier on in the episode. And then we have the next morning where, the family members, they give this watch to Lois, in which it's a gift that she doesn't return. Like, she really loves this gift, but everyone's there just to give her strength and just hope. And yeah, we have Lois just heading into treatment, and that is how the episode wraps up. Quite an emotional ending, but overall, once again, another amazing episode of Superman and Lois, in my opinion. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. If you guys have enjoyed the video, please give a like and subscribe. Be sure to let me know in the comment section down below what you guys thought about this episode. I'm interested to see all of your thoughts towards all of it as well. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video.